you everyone for joining us today on The Brown Dad. We have a very, very special guest today. For the very first time, we've got a brown granddad. Melvin Marques is joining us today with over 40 plus years as a pharmaceutical consultant in the pharmacy industry. Melvin, say hello to our viewers.
Hi, how's everybody doing? It's a beautiful day here on August 30th.
Very nice. Very nice. Melvin, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you. We've got some wonderful stories to share. Tell us, what it was like growing up way back when. Where did you grow up? Let's start with that, and then
I grew up in Mumbai, India.
You're right.
Mumbai, India.
Very nice. Okay. And how was it? It obviously the time was different because you've now you're currently third generation then, right? Being a granddad, you've got your second generation, and then which were your children, and then the generation after that, which are your grandchildren. So what was that experience like growing up? Like, what do you see in contrast growing up so many years ago in Mumbai to now? What do you see the contrast, the challenges with? Yeah.
The contrast was life was very comfortable where I grew up.
Right.
In Mumbai. It was my father was a medical practitioner. So he was well resourced financially.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have any burdens in my life from education or livelihood and just for my wants.
Right.
Coming to Canada was a different ball game, totally.
Right.
Because I came not as a student or a youngster, but I came as a married person.
Right.
That started a life again, and no support systems.
Right.
So I had to start from scratch, and that was a huge stress on my life. And there was a point within 4 months, since I was not getting a good job in my life, I was just ready to pack up my bags and go to India. Yeah.
Wow.
The zone of comfort.
Yeah, definitely.
But
we'll get into that space in just a moment, but just backtracking, obviously you went from Mumbai, and then from Mumbai, you once you finished your education over there, you moved out from Mumbai. You said not as a student, but then in a workforce. And you moved out of Mumbai. Where did you move to? Please tell us.
I stayed with my parents in the house.
Okay.
Because we all had like a joint family system.
Right.
But in my case, my brother moved out.
Right.
He bought his place. So I lived with my dad till I got married. After I got married, for a year we lived with our parents, and then we relocated to another city in India called Pune.
Okay.
And I started a business there in rubber chemicals. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice.
In the trading business.
Very nice.
And after that, I moved to Canada within about a year or two of relocating to Pune. I came to Canada as a rubber technologist.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And that was my interview process and the points that I scored, because we had the point system at that time.
Right.
I gained a lot of points on my experience and knowledge for rubber, and rubber was one of the categories that they needed.
They were looking for in the workforce. Is it?
Yeah,
workforce. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting.
And the lady who interviewed me, a Canadian lady, she was well versed in the subject matter also. So there was no bullshitting. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Because she was the immigration officer, and she knew about latex and rubber and all this interesting
everything. Stuff. I don't know if she was, because there were two people.
Yeah.
There were two people. One person was just watching, but she knew her stuff.
Oh, okay.
And then every time I answered a question, she would look at my wife to see if she agreed with what I was saying.
Interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting, because it's obviously a challenge coming into the country in a workforce situation. and then coming to a brand new place and completely not having left India and experiencing a totally different culture.
Sure.
When you first arrived, if you don't mind telling our viewers what year it is that you came to Canada?
I came in 1989, January.
89. Wow. Okay. Very nice. Very long time ago. I was a little younger at that time. I wasn't able to do these interviews very effectively, but yeah, that's definitely an experience. And you see a change, obviously, in Canada, and the space that you were from migrating in '89 to where we are today in 2021.
You know, we think there's a change, but change for the new immigrant is the same.
Right.
Everybody said you had it better last time. There's
Right.
no such thing as a better. Everybody goes through the same process.
Right.
Like when I came to the country, interest rates were close to 15 and 16%.
Whew, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
'89. It's well
Yeah.
known.
Yeah.
Uh, I bought a house that I had to sell to a bigger home at a loss. But
Right.
relatively it worked out because I bought less at a lower
Right.
price,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, and the interest rates then dropped to like 10%, 5, 6%
Yeah.
over a period of time. So
Yes.
there is no right time. It's how
Right.
you make the best of it. And
Right.
if you play the victim category, you're done.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's very true. I'm glad you brought up that point. It's a very interesting point because regardless of what age it is that you do a migration, and regardless of where it is that you do the migration, there's always going to be challenges.
Yeah.
It's because it's different from where it is. And as you said, the comfort of what you had and moving from that comfort to something totally different, it's obviously different, right? And it's
Yes.
different, challenging, those type of things. Now, obviously, coming into the space and coming over here, way back when in '89, did you have children at that point in time already?
I, I had a 3-year-old daughter.
Wow. Okay. Very nice. Okay. And how was that experience? Because you're leaving that comfort of having potentially again living in a joint family, having parents to be able to support kind of that space of a growing child, and then moving obviously to a different place, and then moving over here to a completely different place where potentially, as you said, you didn't know anyone. What were the challenges that you would have encountered at that time?
The challenges first is a job. You need the
Right.
money, right?
Right.
Support
Right.
yourself. Now, where
Right.
do you go?
Right.
So that is one challenge. Second challenge is uh, how do we going to bring this child up? Because if
Right.
we both are looking out for jobs, husband and wife, the child is at home, so somebody has to look after the child
Right.
because she was not in a school going age. She was less than 3. She was like 2 years and maybe a few
Right.
months
Right.
younger.
Right.
And so we had to juggle. We didn't have a vehicle also.
Mm-hmm.
We had to take public transportation. We had to network. So I used a lot of resources from the Indian diaspora
Mm-hmm.
to connect with, and they were very, very, very helpful. A lot of people in the pharmaceutical industry who are older than me and more experienced in the country,
Mm-hmm.
they did for me mock interviews, arranged interview, led me to different companies, and
Right.
we didn't have even computers at that time
Right.
at
Right.
89. So
Right.
it was all phones and no cell phone also, but
Right.
just
Just landline. Right.
landline, yep, and then and just constant communication.
Yeah.
So and another big one is the power of personal prayer with the Almighty.
Right. Right.
That's all you had. And then
Right.
with the money that you brought in, whatever it is, you try to make ends meet.
And obviously, coming from a country where the currency is not holding as much
No,
value,
yes,
definitely makes a big challenge, right? Because
yeah,
I mean, with the value being almost 1/50th of what your native currency was,
sure,
that makes quite a big challenging situation. I totally
yeah.
agree. I totally understand that can be quite a bit of a challenge. Now, obviously, then you're in that space. You've now come into Canada. You've got a child looking for a job. At the same time, your wife is also in that space where you're looking for a job. Now, ultimately, you do find a job. And how does that affect you? What transitions what accommodations do you have to make in order to accommodate this job and accommodate everything else? Like how did that work out for you?
First of all, it's a tremendous pride just finding a job.
Right,
So that was a huge boost in my morale,
right,
and it gave me some support. Like even if it was a very entry level job in a janitorial selling company,
right,
but I was getting some money from from my employer
right.
to make some ends meet. So the first thing is finding a rental place because they needed your financial credentials. So I had people, Indian background people who
Fought for
guaranteed
you.
the
Right,
payment.
right,
So that was first. Second thing is somebody else helped for my wife with National Bank at that time, which is now became Premier and then TD. But my wife was working there. Then
right.
that helped, and then we put the. But the other big challenge is we're not used to babysitters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what giving this child to a stranger was a huge mind shift in our
Right,
attitude and accepting that,
right.
and then so finally when I got a better job in pharmaceuticals, I we made the call for my wife to stay at home,
Okay.
a huge
Okay.
cost,
Yeah.
and because it's like you need a good second income, but we said that's fine.
Right.
So she brought up the child, and made my job a success in my career. So
Right.
there was some compromises. I was more on the road traveling, and I was just waiting for my to get a good bonus at the end and good awards for my longevity in the
Right.
industry. Yeah.
Right. It's definitely, yeah, definitely very challenging, right? And having to, again, give up that portion where it is you'd like to be able to to interact with your child,
Yeah.
especially during those crucial years, but yet you have to make those sacrifices
Yep.
to manage whatever it is monetarily, as you said, right? It is,
Yeah.
and it does fall that structure does fall sort of. Where it is that reliance was on you. So I fully understand where it is that you came from, and it's definitely a challenging experience. But
Mhm.
I mean, it's rewarding at the end of it. So,
Yes.
what do you see? Was I mean, aside from the fact that you're having to spend these long hours, and you're having to accommodate, what did you see was the biggest challenge in all of that? Like, how did you uh, this space being the ability to juggle the time? I think is something that you mentioned with the fact that this was a big challenge, more importantly, how did you solve for it, if you don't mind my asking?
How did I didn't get that part? Sorry.
How did you solve for that challenge, more importantly, like this challenge of not having the time? How did you solve for it? With the fact that you've where one spouse managed, you see the family portion of it, and then
Mm.
one spouse managed the financial. Was that the solution?
Yeah. So what happened was this is where I changed improve my efficiencies of managing my life.
Hmm.
So then I got a better understanding of the business and the territory and the customer base. I started developing my own formula for time efficiency. So, like, I would plan my territory in a way I would not be crisscrossing from one end of
Right.
the. I would plan my day such that I would
Cover
cover
the
a certain
efficient
portion. Yeah,
routes. Right. Right.
arrange appointments in that way. When I used to arrange I would say whatever they said yes.
Yeah.
But then I knew that people were okay. I said, can you change that for me? It's not the best, and they
Right.
were agreeable. But we were so worried that
They
we
might
would
say
offend
no.
people.
What if? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'd say
Yeah.
yes to anything and to just run around the place.
Right.
Yeah. So I started to understanding people's behavior, study. So that's what I call the Canadian experience. Yeah. So I got a better understanding of the Canadian experience in the business world and how people there is no issue about telling somebody I can't make it at that time, can you give me another time? And they're very accommodating when you give
Right.
them the.
Right.
There's a reason also why you ask for these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the truth is, genuinely, I mean, I heard this a long time ago, and it goes, if you don't, uh, you'll never know until you ask, right?
Yeah.
You're the worst case scenario, you're going to get a no, and that's okay because you already were at that no state before you asked, so
Yeah.
you might as well ask, right? That being said, I didn't want to actually take our viewers on a journey of you having that transition now from dad to granddad. And how is that? Well, please share the joys with our viewers. What is it different this time around? Because you get to be a dad, but without certain other rules, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep. So it's a very, very good experience and fulfilling experience, because a dad, you have all the stress that these kids give us, right? Ability. Yeah, I'm not stressed with these kids. They bring me joy. That's
Right.
the problem of the parents. So, so I just love it. They are here. We are here. We pandered them, but I think we are also uh, reprimanded by
The
my
parents.
kids that don't spoil them. So I said, then why you bring them here? Yeah, you bring them here because you cannot spoil them. We'll spoil them. So, but it's a wonderful time. So we are using this opportunity also for mental development. So we spend time on things that are fun things for them, games,
Right.
because if they go home, it's constantly something about whenever they grow up, like about education or reprimanding about behaviors or anything.
Right. Right.
So it's a good transition for the kids also. And we also uh,
Enjoy it.
politely we also discipline them for some
Yeah.
of the behaviors, because we want them to grow up as good kids in society.
Right. Right. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting experience, right? Because I mean, initially as a dad, you have your set of rules, and then now you've got the grandkids where
Yeah.
those set of rules kind of sort of can be bent. In
Yeah.
retrospect, you're like, okay, maybe I didn't have to be as strict as you put it earlier, right?
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So what then do you see the ideal brown dad as?
So the brown dad, I think, if it's basically just to, if there is any message I could give to people in our community or the brown community, basically is never give up.
Right.
Focus. Don't find excuses why you could not achieve that goal, and be self-aware of what you can and you cannot do, because
Right.
many of us are not aware of our
Limitations or
our
challenges.
limitations, our areas that we should be
Improving.
developing ourselves. We
Right.
think we are that we are
We're the
experts, when we are
master or whatever it is, right?
to be aware, work on those, always upgrade yourself in your skills, and always uh, know more about the of your workplace and network like crazy, okay, with people, because that
That
is because that's the way. And don't look at people brown, white, or black or anything. Just look at them as human beings. Your whole attitude to interactions and social skills will just
tremendously
it will
inspiring.
accelerate tremendously.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think that's some great advice because the number one key with getting anywhere is that networking.
Yeah.
Uh, I believe that the communication is important, and networking is the key to that, right?
Yeah.
Because you can be excellent at what you did. You were probably headhunted from wherever you were headhunted from,
Yeah.
but until you can network with the people that need you in that space and that are willing to understand your actual worth, of what it is that what it is that you do. As you said, you came, with a specialization in the industry of rubber and latex and that entire space. But if when you got your first job, you got an entry-level job where they didn't necessarily hire you as an expert, so they weren't necessarily paying you until you networked with the right people and got into that in front of the right people that were willing to say, yeah, we understand this guy's actually not that guy, but he's this guy and he's able to do all these other things. So
Yeah.
we're willing to pay him that. And you're absolutely right. It's if you didn't have to do that many years ago, I guess we wouldn't be having this conversation about 40 years of experience in pharmacy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely a interesting experience. Well, I think that's great, Melvin. Do you have any last words? Because I do like the fact that you mentioned, do not ever give up, because that's a very important thing. As you said, no time is ever right. But do you have any last words for our viewers, that they can kind of take away and incorporate in their everyday?
First one, I would say I'll just focus on three things. One is never play the victim game. Okay, if you so that's a tendency to play the victim game.
Yeah.
Second thing, always do not hesitate to ask for help, whether it's your community or anybody else. Just don't hesitate. There should be no shame in telling people, I need your help. I can't do this. Can you mentor me? Can you do this? Whatever it is.
Right.
And the third thing, look at people in your community, look beyond.
Right.
Look at beyond, because sometimes the best supporters of you will be people who are not brown, could be anything else. So the way you behave, the way you interact and treat people in a very decent manner. That's be respectful.
That's great. That is amazing. Alan, I am quite impressed with, the pearls of wisdom that you've showered through the entire interview. I think our viewers are going to have a wonderful time listening to it. There's so many things, I think, for each person to take away, whether they're immigrants or not, regardless of that, just this angle of having to be better and to interact with people like they're people, regardless of skin color, I think is a very, very important space. I thank you for being on our show, and I thank our viewers for tuning in to this episode of The Brown Dad. With that, we sign off.
Thank you.
Thank you.